With Walker Wildman brings you the inside scoop of what's happening in our nation's capital.
We must take our country back.
Each Saturday at 2:30 p.m. Central on American Family Radio.
Once upon a time, I was a liberal. But liberalism has changed. So I am walking away. And I encourage all of you to do the same.
Despite his overall unpopularity, President Trump is winning. And the Democrats right now are reeling.
These people are communists.
The Democratic Party has not figured out how to succeed in the Trump era.
Democrats don't care about us, not one bit. They walked away from us a long time ago, and it's time for us to do the same.
How many refugees has Poland taken?
0.
And you're proud of that?
Of course, because this is what our people are expecting from our government. This is why Poland is so safe.
They made it very clear that there's only one way to come to Hungary, which is the legal way.
We can be called populists, nationalists. I don't care. I care about my family and about my country.
Freedom prospers when religion is vibrant and the rule of law under God is acknowledged.
An informed patriot is what we want.
Welcome to American Family Radio's Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio.
Muscular Christianity.
Where we relentlessly explore the intersection of truth and politics.
The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Now, here's your host, Brian Fisher.
Howdy and welcome to a brand new week of broadcasting on American Family Radio. Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity. And you are listening to Focal Point on American Family Radio, the most dangerous radio network in all of America. Why? Because we unapologetically tell you the truth. It's the one place you can go to get a perspective on the news, perspective on the world that is rooted and grounded. The perspective is rooted and grounded in the Word of God. That is the filter through which we screen everything, through which we evaluate everything that happens in public policy. Stacked and packed and locked and loaded for you today. Let's go for our time in the Word to Isaiah 22 and 23. This is where our reading has taken us. The schedule you can find at pray.afa.net. Encourage you to go there, bookmark it, open it up every day, read the passages for the day, and then pray the prayer for the day that's right in the middle of the page, pray.afa.net. Now we're in Isaiah, and Isaiah has a lot of words for the politicians of his day. And in this section we're going to look at today, he tells us the two kinds of candidates, the two kinds of politicians that we absolutely do not want in public office. So it can help us screen candidates. We're going to hear a lot from a lot of candidates over the next 5 months telling us why we ought to vote for them. Here's the screen that we can use to kind of filter out some of the noise. Now, the first guy we're introduced to here is a guy by the name of Shebna. Now, he was the steward over the household. Means he had immense power. The king's out there doing his kingly stuff, sitting on his throne. The steward is the guy that's actually running things. And we find out that the Shebna, this guy was a one-man deep state. This guy was corrupt, and therefore he was undermining everything that a good king would even try to do. He had enormous power, enormous influence under the king, but he was corrupt. Now, he was filled with pride. Verse 16, we're told, this is God's word to Shebna, you have cut out a tomb for yourself. You have cut out here a tomb on the height, and you carve a dwelling for yourself in the rock. Now, archaeologists have found an elaborate tomb right outside Jerusalem at a little village by the name of Silwan. It's got a Hebrew inscription at its entrance, and this very likely was the tomb of Shebna. They found his tomb, and so elaborate that it's still preserved today. So here was a guy, Shebna was saying, hey, I'm a public servant, but in reality, he was in politics entirely for himself, to serve his ego and to massage his pride. So when the cameras were rolling, this guy was the most personable man you'd ever want to meet. Turn the cameras off, he wouldn't give a member of the hoi polloi the time of day. Communicates, you don't matter to him, he's the only thing that matters to him. Now, what did God think of Shebna? It says in verse 17 of chapter 22, behold, the Lord will hurl you away violently, O you strong man. He will seize firm hold on you, verse 18, and hurl you around and throw you like a ball into a wide land. There you shall die, you shame of your master's house. So when once he was the pride of the land, now he's become an embarrassment to everyone. You know what that sounds like, what God's going to do to him? Hurl you around and throw you like a ball into a wide land? You know what that made me think of? Made me think of the hammer throw. You know what the hammer throw is in the Olympics? Yeah. You got this 16-pound ball on the end of this chain, and the thrower has a grip, and he swings that 16-pound ball around and around and around. He spins around 3 times or 4 times or 5 times, and then he hurls that thing into the distance. The world record just a shade under 300 feet. So this is essentially what the prophet is saying God is going to do with Shebna. He's going to do the hammer throw, and Shebna is the hammer, which is not the thing you want to be in this little story. So God is going to whirl around 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and fling Shebna into the wilderness. God says to him in verse 19, I will thrust you from your office, and you will be pulled down from your station. You're going to wind up being an embarrassment to yourself and to your political party, your master's house. And then God says, look, I've already got your replacement picked. Verse 20, in that day I will call my servant Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, and I will clothe him with your robe, and will bind your sash on him, and commit your authority to his hand. Now, at first, this is the kind of politician who actually does well. He can do well. Verse 21, he shall be a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to the house of Judah, to provide the kind of wise, mature guidance and counsel that a father provides to his children. He was able to do this for his constituents. God says, I will place on his shoulder the key of the house of David. He shall open and none shall shut. He shall shut and none shall open. So he would operate under the blessing and the favor of God. He would be able to open doors of opportunity for his nation and his people that others could not. He could sponsor terrific legislation. He's also empowered by God to stop bad ideas from becoming law. You know, in reality, it's probably more important to stop bad legislation than it is to pass good legislation. And Eliakim had the power and the authority and the grace to do both. God says this, I will fasten him like a tent peg in a secure place, and he will become a throne of honor to his father's house. But what happens, he's not strong enough to bear up under the weight of public responsibility. Verse 24, they will hang on him the whole honor of his father's house. In that day, declares the Lord of hosts, the peg that was fastened in a secure place will give way, and it will be cut down and fall, and the load that was on it will be cut off, for the Lord has spoken. So this is a case where he simply did not have the strength of character and will to bear up under the load of his office. And notice that his constituents were part of the problem. It says in verse 24, they, that is the people, not the Lord, will hang on him the whole honor of his father's house. The people expected too much from him, and he couldn't bear up under the load. So it's a reminder to us that we should not expect from a human leader more than a human can deliver. They are not Marvel superheroes. They are just men. We need to remind ourselves that our hope is in God, not even in the best politician on the fruited plain, because every human leader will let us down eventually. Well, let's go to prayer and pray some of these things back to God. Lord God, we worship you this day as the sovereign over all nations. When you judge a nation, you leave it without house or harbor. Even cities of revelry, cities who bestow crowns and whose merchants are princes, whose traders are renowned in the earth, are under your authority. You are also able to take hold of mighty men who do not please you, hurl them away, and depose them from office. We ask you in our day to thrust unworthy men from office and pull them down from their station. Please summon servants of your choice to replace them. I pray for my family, for the listening audience of Focal Point, and as well as for myself. I pray that we will humble ourselves under your mighty hand, that you may raise us up at the proper time. In Jesus' name.
Hi, this is Dan Celia from Financial Issues. You know, the charitable gift annuity concept is more important today than probably ever. It is something that you have heard me talk about for many, many years. And right now, for now, the tax code is still allowing charitable organizations to establish a charitable gift annuity so that you can be guaranteed permanent income for the rest of your life. Don't waste any time. So many of you have IRAs, 401k money. Peel off a piece of that. Establish your charitable gift annuity so that you have a portion of permanent income that you know is never going to change for the rest of your life. Would you do it today? Call AFA Foundation, 800-326-4543. Extension 345. That's 800-326-4543, extension 345.
Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. Here Jesus instructed his disciples to cross a lake and meet him on the other side of it. As they went, they were met by a violent windstorm that halted their progress. Often in our Christian lives, we receive clear instruction from the Lord, only to be met by an obstacle that halts our progress. We must, however, recognize that the onset of a storm does not cancel out God's instructions. Halted progress does not equal denied destination. When Jesus directed the disciples to go to the other side, he absolutely meant for them to get there. Delay does not equal denial.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, Public Policy Analyst for the American Family Association.
This is Focal Point with Brian Fisher on American Family Radio.
Howdy and welcome back to this brand new edition of Focal Point on American Family Radio. Brian Fisher is my name, and you are listening to the home of muscular Christianity on Conservative Talk Radio, where we screen everything that we see and hear in our culture. We filter it through the Word of God, and we find those things that are in alignment with the Word of God, and we praise them. We find those things that are out of alignment with God's will, and we criticize them. Our goal is to be the one place on your radio dial that you can implicitly trust. Well, let's see where we want to start today. There's been kind of a shift that I want to talk about in the Democratic Party that a lot of people are just now beginning to catch up to. And the reality is that the Democratic Party is beginning to lose some significant amounts of steam and support and even numbers because people are getting fed up with the Republican Party. And a lot of people in the Democratic Party, they're calling themselves Democrats today, but they have moved very, very far to the left, so far to the left that I've got one soundbite in here where this commentator, and he's a reasonable guy, he's a rational guy, and he said they are now basically communists. They've gone so far to the left that there's little difference between them and outright communists. So we want to explore that just a little bit. I want to give you our winnable war, global warming, catastrophic warning alert. Yeah. This is your catastrophic global warming alert. Catastrophic global warming alert. Remember, I've told you before, I'll say it again. Global warming, the whole thing is a sham. It is a scam. And it is a hoax. And don't let anybody lie to you about this. Here is Exhibit 198. This is from the Barents Observer. This is the newspaper up by the Barents Sea up there in Alaska. And again, ladies and gentlemen, look at the extent of the work that we go to for you. We are reading newspapers in Alaska for you. keep you updated on the global warming sham, scam, and hoax. Anyway, this is from the Barron's Observer. It is late June. This came out late last week. But the winter has not abandoned the Gulf of Ob, or Ob, it's O-B. The shallow bay, which houses two of Russia's biggest Arctic outshipment terminals for oil and gas. So the Russians have a terminal there from which they ship oil and gas across the Arctic Ocean. The Gulf of Ob remains packed with fast ice. It's created a complicated situation. The state company which manages the Russian nuclear-powered icebreakers confirms that independent shipping in the area is paralyzed and that LNG carriers and tankers are stuck. The shipping companies had expected the Gulf of Ob to be free of ice in the course of June. Why? Because they probably listened to all that global warming sham, scam, and hoax bilge that's coming out of all these environmental activists. They were wrong. They thought that icebreaker assistance would not be necessary. They were dead wrong. According to Rosatomflot, that's a Russian company, that's how you say it in Russian, I think, there appears to be a need for icebreaker services in the area at least until after the first week of July. And remember, all the times that Al Gore told us, you know, the Arctic Ocean, it's going to be free of ice. By 2013, you won't be able to find any ice in the Arctic Ocean. It's all going to be gone because of the travesty of global warming. This is the first summer in 4 years that the Gulf of Ob is packed with this much ice. Global warming seems to have receded a little, and we are returning to the standards of the 80s and 90s, says company representative Audrey Smirnov. All right, there you have it. There's your global warming update. Sham, scam, and hoax alert from the Barents Sea. All right, and I want to talk about what's happening in the Democratic Party, and it's, you know, they've got a drift going on, and I think some of them are aware of it. The media doesn't want you to know about this. But listen to this data point. This is from David French in National Review. This is from a Reuters Ipsos megapoll. The online survey of more than 16,000 registered voters ages 18 to 34, these are millennials, shows their support for Democrats over Republicans for Congress slipped by about 9 percentage points over the past 2 years to 46% overall. They increasingly say that the Republican Party is a better steward of the economy. So their support for Democrats over Republicans has dropped 9% in the last 2 years, and they're barely at 46%. So millennials, not even half of them, support the Democratic Party. Now, talking about white millennials, this is from an article in The Guardian, a London newspaper. Today, as many white millennials support the Democrats as the Republicans, each at 39%. Just 2 years ago, Democrats still had a 14% lead over Republicans among white millennials. The trends are even more pronounced among white male millennials. Today, this group favors the Republicans over the Democrats by a staggering 11%. In 2016, just 2 short years ago, ladies and gentlemen, Democrats led white male millennials by 12%. So among white male millennials, aged 13 to 4, they now support Republicans over Democrats by 11%. This is absolutely unheard of for Republicans to have this kind of a lead, generic lead, over the Democrats. And remember, these are millennials. These are the voters of tomorrow. You know, and the meme out there, and it's a myth, is that we've lost the millennials. The millennials are hopelessly to the left. They're gone. Can't reclaim them. Got to do the best we can to pick up a few chips here and there. But white millennials support Republicans over Democrats by 11%. So the millennial generation a long way from being lost. Now, let's see. I want to grab clip. Let's grab clip number. No, R2. Let's start with clip number R2. This is a guy by the name of Brandon Straka, or Straka. I don't know how he says it. He is a hairdresser in New York City. Not only is he a hairdresser, he is a gay hairdresser in New York City. And he's explaining in about a 7-minute YouTube video why he's leaving the Democratic Party. And this thing has become a viral force on social media. He produced this video, I don't know, about a month ago or so, but it started to pick up steam. Has had over 5 million people on Facebook and YouTube have seen this video, and he's a good-looking gay man talking about why he is leaving the Democratic Party. He said this: once upon a time, I was a liberal. Well, to be honest, less than a year ago, I was still a liberal. But he says, I reject a system which allows an ambitious, misinformed, and dogmatic mob to suppress free speech, to create false narratives, and apathetically steamroll over the truth. These are the reasons I became a liberal, and these are the same reasons why I am now walking away. And here's what he said toward the end of this video clip R2.
But if you are a minority in America today, the left-wing politicians and the liberal media don't want you to ever discover this lie. So they bombard us with stories designed to reinforce the narrative that you are in danger, that you cannot succeed. They manipulate your fears and concerns by telling you that you are disadvantaged, disempowered, and disposable to everyone except them. They will tell you that you need them. They will tell you that you are only safe under their supervision. They will promise to liberate you from all that chains you. And then they will do absolutely nothing for you. Once upon a time, I was a liberal. But liberalism has changed, and I will no longer be a part of an ideology or political party that represents everything that contradicts my values of unity, equal opportunity, personal empowerment, compassion, and love. So I am walking away, and I encourage all of you to do the same. Walk away.
All right, that's the message now from a lot of liberals. Walk away from the Democratic Party. Walk away. They'll promise you all these wonderful things. Then when they get elected office, they will do absolutely nothing for you. It is time for you to walk away. Now, here is a middle-income black man by the name of Henry Davis. And just listen to him. He gets all choked up talking about how much Donald Trump means to him.
And I'm just so proud. I'm just proud to be an American, you know. And again, Barack Obama, I respected the office. I respected the fact that he was the president, but ain't nobody like Trump, man. If you want to work, it's jobs out here. And I'm literally like, I'm just crying because I'm like, it's just a good time to be alive and to be able to witness what's really going on. And we got a chance. I'm just talking about from a black perspective. If you really want to work and get up off and do something, you can do it. I just thank God for President Trump. You know, I ain't never met the man. I don't know the man. But I'm just talking about what he's doing for our country and what he's doing for our people. Black people working, you know what I'm saying? Jobs is coming back. Factories is opening up. You know, he helping with the drug epidemic and all that. It's just a beautiful time to be alive, y'all. Y'all gotta excuse me, but I'm wearing my feelings on my shoulder right now, and I'm just happy to be an American and where at least I know I'm free.
So that's Henry Davis, a black man who is so proud of Trump, he just gets choked up talking about it because of what he is doing for the black community. Remember the gay hairdresser, the Democrats will promise you anything but when they get into office, they will do absolutely nothing for you. Here's a black man saying, look, what Donald Trump has done is he's brought jobs back to America, to black Americans, and I love the man and I love my country. Back in 2.
This is Dr. Richard Land, president of Southern Evangelical Seminary in Charlotte, North Carolina. Welcome to Bringing Every Thought Captive. John Adams was one of our most important founding fathers and served as our nation's second president from 1797 to 1801. In 1798, while serving as president, John Adams explained our American self-governing experiment, quote, "We have no government armed in power, capable of contending in human passions unbridled by morality and religion. Our Constitution was made for a moral and a religious people. It is wholly inadequate for the government of any other." End quote. President Adams understood that the then new and unique experiment in self-government was a bold attempt to wed Judeo-Christian values and beliefs with Enlightenment ideas of self-government, which gave unprecedented freedom and liberties to ordinary people. However, John Adams also understood that such a deliberately self-limited government depended on an understanding that the vast majority of the citizenry would voluntarily obey the law, even when no one was watching, because they were aware of being accountable to a higher moral authority, namely God. If there were to come a time when human passions were no longer controlled by the internal morality and religion of the people, then the freedoms made possible by such limited government would ultimately collapse into moral license, social chaos, and economic disaster. In other words, America's unprecedented liberties were inextricably intertwined with her Judeo-Christian religious beliefs, and societal abandonment of one would inevitably lead to the loss of the other. For more information about Southern Evangelical Seminary, go to ses.edu. This is Richard Land.
This is Focal Point with Brian Fisher
on American Family Radio.
Listen to the audio podcast or download today's program at afr.net. You can also read Brian Fisher's columns at afa.net.
afa.net.
Howdy, and welcome back to Focal Point, American Family Radio. Brian Fisher is my name. Glad to have you in the conversation. You know, and Jeff, you were pointing out to me a story about Bernie Sanders and about how, I guess these are millennials probably, are turning on Bernie.
Yeah, it's a story in Breitbart. It basically, they kind of trying to purge him from the Democratic Party, and he's not really Democrat, is he? He's independent.
Well, he calls himself a socialist.
Okay. Well, because he wants to reform ICE and not abolish it altogether, they're trying to distance themselves from Bernie Sanders.
So, I mean, I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, if Bernie Sanders is not far enough to the left for you, I mean, you're going to fall off the edge of the flat earth here. You take another step. That's how close to the edge of oblivion that you are. And this seems to be the direction that the Democrats are moving. You know, they've allowed these people, the loudest voices, the screechiest voices, the angriest voices, the least restrained voices in their entire political movement are now running everything. They're making the decisions. They're leading the energy. They are leading the charge. And that's why people are walking away from the Democratic Party. A lot of them because it's not conservative enough for them, and a lot of them because they don't think it's liberal enough for them. It's not farther enough to the left. That gay hairdresser, he's not walking away from it because it's too Republican. He's walking away from it because it's not Republican enough.
Democrat.
Not Democrat enough.
Yeah.
He wants it to be way out there to the left, and he's going to walk away until it heeds. And that's what they're doing with Bernie Sanders. I mean, it's the same kind of idea. So it's a real interesting, because this is right in front of a midterm election, that all of this unrest is burbling to the surface in the Democratic Party. Let's play one more soundbite. This is clip number 3. This is a young guy named C.J. Pearson. We heard from him 2 or 3 years ago. And here's what he has to say about this WalkAway movement.
You know, Democrats like to claim that Black Lives Matter, but I don't think they do. I think Black votes do, but Black lives, not too much. And if they do matter to Democrats, they have a really funny way of showing it. It is long overdue for people of color and black folks in this country to open their eyes and to just realize that Democrats don't care about us, not one bit. They walked away from us a long time ago, and it's time for us to do the same.
So, C.J. Pearson, they walked away from us a long time ago. It's time for us to walk away from them. And he reminds folks that the Democratic Party is the party of slavery. It's the party of Jim Crow. It's the party of segregation. It's the party of KKK. That's the nature of the Democratic Party. All of those things. Slavery was protected by the Democratic Party. Jim Crow laws put in place by Democrats. The KKK was started and run by Democrats. Segregation, all that was a Democratic idea. They pushed segregation. And by the way, they're back to pushing it again. They're pushing racial segregation all over the place. They want graduation ceremonies that are for one race and one race only. You got the wrong skin color, you cannot come to our graduation. They want classes and seminars that are segregated by race. You can only come to this seminar if you happen to have the right skin color. You have the wrong skin color, you cannot come. They're systematically at Harvard discriminating against Asians. You got the wrong color skin, we are going to discriminate against you. I don't care how good your SAT scores are. So this is the party of segregation and racism, and they're back. And that's what C.J. Pearson is saying, that this is the party that walked away from blacks in reality a long time ago, and now we are going to start walking away from them. So anyway, that's what's going on out there, and I think that is real trouble for the Democratic Party. And again, they want everybody to forget that they were the party of slavery. They were the party that lobbied, filibustered against the Civil Rights Bill in 1964, filibustered against the Voting Rights Bill of 1965. They want everybody to forget that. And, I think you ask most people, they would tell you that Republicans did those things. Republicans were the ones that filibustered the Civil Rights. So they were the ones that tried to stop it from going into effect. But a greater percentage of Republicans voted for the Civil Rights Act than Democrats. Same with the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And here's another article on the rise of Donald Trump's standing among Hispanics. Hispanics, this is by Steve Cortez, who's Hispanic himself on RealClearPolitics.com. Hispanics, by definition, are primarily a working class demographic, as we, because he's Hispanic, on average own only a tenth of the household wealth of white families. Thankfully, President Trump's policies of tax cuts and regulatory relief point to a brighter economic future for all wage earners, including Hispanics. For example, an incredible 2 million Americans have dropped off food stamps since Trump was elected. In the most recent government jobs report, wages for non-managerial workers rose at a 2.7% annual clip, the highest in a decade. The jobless rate for non-college graduates just hit the lowest level since 2001. These gains, Steve Cortez writes, are highly beneficial to hard-working Hispanics as Trump's policies continue to lift economic underdogs. Now, it's even interesting when you look at the immigration issue, because I think people have a viewpoint of Hispanics and immigration that's wildly astray from the truth. Zogby Analytics exit polling from 2016, according to the Zogby Analytics polling, twice as many Hispanics, listen to this, twice as many Hispanics believe immigration enforcement is too lax versus too stringent. The meme out there is they all want immigration enforcement relaxed. They don't. Twice as many of them think it's not stringent enough. Economist YouGov poll found that only 20% of Hispanics support the previous policies of catch and release. This is what these judges are forcing the Trump administration into. If you can't hold a family more than 20 days, your only option, according to these judges, are to release them. Well, I say we just release them back to the country they came from. We can't hold them longer than 20 days, and they don't accept a longer detention. We just pack them up on a plane or a bus and send them back to where they came from. So again, even Hispanics do not like the catch and release. Only 20% think that's a good idea. So they know what happens. They know that MS-13 are coming into their neighborhoods where they will be able to fit in, where they'll be less conspicuous, and where their children and their families are the ones that are at risk. So Hispanics are, they're not stupid people. They're smart enough to realize that, look, these immigration policies are bad for us. They're bad for jobs for us, and they're bad for the safety and security of our communities. 64% of Hispanics support either detaining the whole family together, which is what the Trump administration is doing, or detaining parents and children separately. They support that as well. So Donald Trump wants to keep families together until their legal challenges are settled. It's the judge that says, no, I'm only going to give you 20 days. So these judges, again, just kind of making up law on the fly. You know, Melania went down to visit young detainees in Arizona in the little camps they have set up for them there. And even Beto O'Rourke, I've never heard his first name pronounced. He's running against Ted Cruz. And he was asked if he would abolish ICE, and he said no. So he's got to run to his right because his opponent is Ted Cruz. He says, yes, I want him to abolish ICE. He knows he's toast. He's done in running for Senate. Frankly, he says the things that happen, listen, he's running as a Democrat, remember. Frankly, the things that happen under the last administration, by which he means the Obama administration, which separated more families than any administration that had come before it. We went over those numbers with you. Barack Obama separated 72,000 children, 72,410 to be precise, 72,410 children Barack Obama separated from that parents, way out ahead of where Trump has been. He deported more people than any administration that came before it, and he was proud of it. Now, what Obama did is they turned people away at the border. I don't know if you knew that, but they did that. They would catch them and release them back into Mexico, and they would count those as deportations. If we intercepted somebody at the border, if we apprehended them, and if we sent them right back to their home country, he counted that as a deportation. He did that. Now, this is the kind of thing that Trump would like to do, but judges are saying, no, you can't. Now, Trump's approval rating right now is at 47%. It's going up. So all this business about separating families, all of these fake news photographs on the cover of Time magazine, the American people are smart enough to see through all that smoke, all that chaff, and get at the truth. His approval rating still at 47%, up 2%. This is according to CP Harvard Capps Harris poll, up 2% from last month, and he's up 10% among Hispanic voters. His approval rating is up 4 percentage points among Democratic voters compared to a month ago. So Hispanics, remember, are mostly a middle-class demographic, and they focus more on economic issues. Trump's tax reform bill and tax cuts are overwhelmingly popular. You know, one of my best friends in junior high, Mangiera's family, I played a lot of golf with Tony. I played a lot of golf with his dad. And they were absolutely what this article is describing, a middle-class family. Like to play golf, like to go on vacations, like to have color televisions, the whole bit. And that's what this article is saying. Look, those kind of families are far more common than you would think among Democratic households. In Zogby Analytics polling of 2016, twice as many Hispanics believe immigration enforcement is too lax versus too stringent. I just gave you that one. Only 20% support the previous policies of catch and release. They don't like it because it releases criminals into their communities. So again, this is another thing that's happening. The ground is shifting the earth is shifting under the ground that Democrats are walking on, and it's not shifting in their direction. Now, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about immigration, and we'll talk about how Hungary and Poland are leading the way. You'll want to hear this when we come back. You're listening to Focal Point on American Family Radio. We will be right back.
Because life is uncertain, don't go out and just say, well, you know, if the Lord's coming back, I only need this little bit of a garden. No, you go out and you sow your seed and you work hard and you involve yourselves, because he says you don't know what's going to happen.
Join Dr. David Jeremiah for his series, Searching for Heaven on Earth, next time on Turning Point.
5:30 a.m. and 7 p.m. Central on American Family Radio.
You wish you could stop thinking about it, but you can't. It never quite leaves your thoughts. Even in the joyful moments, it's there. The sadness, shame, and sorrow. You know you can't go on like this, so don't. Phone the International Helpline for Abortion Recovery at 866-482-LIFE. Your call is confidential, and you'll be talking with someone who's already been where you are and found the way out. 866-482-LIFE.
Hi, I'm Wil Addison.
And I'm Miki Addison of Airing the Addisons on Urban Family Talk. Family is so important to everything. I mean, think about it. Right after God created Adam, he made family by creating Eve as his wife.
We'd like to invite you to the Marriage, Family, and Life Conference this summer. We'll have a full slate of experts to help encourage and equip the body of Christ to fight for the restoration of the family.
Our speakers include Ryan Baumberger of the Radiance Foundation, Dr. Clarence Schuler of Building Lasting Relationships, Abraham Hamilton III, Pastor Bert Harper and his wife Jan, and more.
We'll even be there.
The Marriage, Family, and Life Conference will be Friday and Saturday, August 17th and 18th at Hope Church in Tupelo, Mississippi. Come help us fight back against the enemy's direct attack on marriage and family. That's the Marriage, Family, and Life Conference, put on by Urban Family Communications, a division of the American Family Association. You can learn more and register at urbanfamilytalk.com.
American Family Radio.
You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Howdy, and welcome back to Focal Point on American Family Radio, the home of Ultra 4K radio. More content per cubic inch of air than any other place on your radio dial. At least that is our goal. That is our objective. Now, a couple of more sound bites on this whole topic of what's happening in the Democratic Party. You know, it's one of those deals, you know, where, you know, how a mudslide happens. You know, it doesn't happen. It doesn't, nothing happens for a while. But the moisture accumulates, the ground begins to soften up, and then all of a sudden, the entire thing just sloughs off in one big whoosh. And I think that's where the Democratic Party is heading, and they have no idea that the ground is shifting beneath their feet. Now, here is Chuck Todd, of all people. This guy's the news anchor at NBC, so he's one of the leading lights in the media hemisphere on the left. And he's talking here basically about the fact that Trump is winning and the Democrats are losing. This is Chuck Todd. Listen.
The announced retirement of Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy this week helped make one political reality clear. Despite his overall unpopularity, President Trump is winning, and the Democrats right now are reeling. The Supreme Court. Mr. Trump is about to shape the court for a generation by choosing a possible tie-breaking conservative justice, and he's already filled the lower courts with like-minded conservatives. How about the Republican Party? The president's approval rating among Republicans is around 90%. Elected Republicans fear criticizing him, and the party has become a cult of personality, his. How about fake news? Mr. Trump has turned that phrase, which initially referred to the phony Russian-generated stories designed to support his campaign in 2016, into an applause line now to discredit responsible reporting showcasing his misdeeds. How about credibility? If reporters faithfully fact-check the president's serial misstatements, they risk being considered biased. If they don't, the misstatements gain traction. Either way, Mr. Trump wins. The Mueller investigation The president has succeeded in convincing millions that the investigation is biased, despite trafficking only in innuendo and not providing evidence. Then there's the economy. It is doing well, but it was doing well before he took office. Yet with unemployment down and jobs being created, President Trump is getting this credit. Still, much of Mr. Trump's success is superficial. While he's more popular among Republicans, the party overall is shrinking. His trade war, North Korea, or the Mueller investigation all could turn against him, and frankly could turn against him now like North Korea has. But if the Democrats' reaction this week to the Kennedy retirement proved anything, it's that the Democratic Party has not figured out how to succeed in the Trump era.
The Democratic Party has not figured out how to succeed in the Trump era. You know, one of the things, they just make these statements all the time that just boggle the mind. You know, he says, despite his overall unpopularity, Trump is winning. Chuck, how does that happen? How does the guy that's awash in unpopularity, how does that guy win anything? I mean, these people have no idea how they're logically contradicting themselves in the same sentence. And they don't even seem to understand it, don't even seem to get it. But he's got a generation-changing opportunity on the Supreme Court. We're going to talk about that in the second hour. You know, his approval rating among Republicans is 87%, so it's close to the 90% that Chuck Todd was talking about. You know, Donald Trump has pounded fake news, and it's even made the left now. The left is nervous about that. And they started doing this fact-checking stuff. But he says if reporters faithfully fact-check the president's serial misstatements, they risk being called biased. Well, they don't faithfully fact-check. That's the problem. They do fact-checks, and their fact-checks are biased. So that turns people off. And he says this, the Mueller investigation, Trump could win on this one, despite the fact he's only trafficking in innuendo and not providing evidence. That's hilarious. Who is trafficking in innuendo and not providing evidence? That would be Mr. Mueller and his gang of political assassins. What evidence have they proffered to this point that there was some kind of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia? Zero, zip, nada, zilch. They're the ones trafficking in innuendo and not providing evidence. And then Chuck Todd says the economy was doing well before Trump took office. That's a bald-faced lie. It was not. You know, Trump's had the economy roaring at over 3% in his first year. President Obama couldn't get there once in 8 years of his regime. And then Chuck Todd says, well, much of Trump's success is superficial. This is crazy. You're making progress on peace in the North Korean peninsula. You're going to call that superficial? The unemployment rate for Hispanics is at an all-time low. The unemployment rate for blacks is at an all-time low, and you're going to call that superficial? The economy's humming along at 4%, more than a percentage point higher than Barack Obama ever got. You're going to call that superficial? I mean, it just boggles the mind the way that these people think. Now, I do agree with those that think he could be in trouble on trade, and I think unless he's got some trick up his sleeve, you know, and I've said this from the beginning, I'll say it again, tariffs are bad. Tariffs are bad for you, tariffs are bad for me, tariffs are bad for the American economy. So maybe Donald Trump is using tariffs as a negotiating ploy to sort of get to the place where we've got true free trade, where there are no tariff barriers between any nations. I hope that's where he's headed. But to call all of these accomplishments superficial is just absurd. Yeah, and you can see now why the American public does not trust the mainstream media, the talking snake media. You know, because Chuck Todd is lying to us even while he thinks he is telling the truth. You know, that's the reality. Somebody who's been deceived, what does that mean? When somebody has been deceived, what does it mean? It means they don't know it. They don't realize that they've been fooled. They don't realize that they have been deceived. They don't realize that what they are spouting is an entire series of falsehoods, because as Paul says in 2 Corinthians 4, their hearts are blinded. Their eyes are blinded to the truth. They cannot see the truth. All right, here's Charles Hurt. He's a journalist in D.C., a pretty smart guy, conservative guy, writes for the Washington Times. And he's talking about this new generation of conservatives that are walking away from the Democratic Party. C.J. Pearson rejecting the Democrats. What have they done for us lately? You know, the gay hairdresser in New York. It's time to walk away. The whole walk away movement starting. People drifting away from the Democratic Party. A lot of Democrats out there saying Bernie Sanders is too far to the right. So here is Charles Hurt. And listen to his assessment, because I think he's right about this. It sounds alarmist and over the top, but I think he is right. Listen to this.
You look at some of these candidates that Republicans put up, the Tea Party candidates, they weren't the best candidates. They were a little rough around the edges. But at the end of the day, they were constitutionalists like Mike Lee. Maybe annoying, but they loved the country. These people are communists. And that's a real problem. And Democrats are going to have to contend with this. And this is not going to be the last sitting Democrat who is going to get ousted by some socialist who wants free stuff for everybody that comes out of nowhere.
You know, and the problem here, and he's right about this, I think a lot of these Democrats now are just out and out communists. In communism, the state owns everything. The state owns all the means of production, and the state gives you whatever it deigns to give you. You have to work for the state. The state keeps everything that you produce and gives a little sliver of it back to you. That's communism. But the promises of communism are utopian. And that's what we're going to start hearing from a lot of Democrats who are going to promise everything. You know, and you can't out-campaign Santa Claus, because Santa Claus is promising to give you something for nothing. That's what these Democrats, who call themselves Democrats, but are really drifting into communism, are going to do. They're going to be out there promising the American people just this world of goodies, a grab bag of prosperity, all for ceding more of the control of your life over to the state. But that's just communism is what they are talking about.
And he'll eat your cookies and drink your milk.
Yeah.
So that's on top of that.
Yeah. Won't leave you any presents. No. And he'll eat your cookies and drink your milk.
You know what? If you want to look at what that entails, look at Cuba, look at Venezuela, and see how well that works out for a country.
It's just absurd that anybody would think about pushing a socialist message, like Rob says, with Venezuela and Cuba as living examples. I mean, I have been to Cuba, was there for 10 days a couple of years ago. I mean, you can see evidence around you. In fact, I'll tell you, all you need to know about socialism, this is all you need to know about socialism. What I'm about to tell you is all you need to know. Everything you need to know about socialism is contained in this little fact. When we traveled to Cuba, we were told that one of the things that we needed to pack in our suitcases was rolls of toilet paper, because you couldn't count on the fact, even if you stayed in a quality hotel, you could not count on the fact that you would have toilet paper available to you. That's the kind of lack that you have in a socialist and communist country. Now, I'm going to, second hour, we are going to talk about immigration as it's being practiced in Europe, what's going on there. We'll also talk about the Supreme Court nomination that's going to come up. We're going to take your calls. We're going to talk about what the Democrats are doing with regard, what some Republicans are doing, actually, with regard to this upcoming nomination that Donald Trump is going to make to the Supreme Court. I've already told you who we like here at the American Family Association, Amy Coney Barrett. I'm going to go over a little bit with you again, her qualifications, so you'll see why she is so eminently qualified to be the next Supreme Court jurist. We'll talk about that in the second hour, along with taking your phone calls. So get ready. Number to call if you're willing to call and willing to hang on, be patient for a while. We won't answer any calls in the first segment, but we can load your calls up and get you in the queue. Number to call is 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. That's the number to call. Be patient. We'll get you on the phones in the second hour. You'll be welcome to our conversation. Focal Point, American Family Radio. Brian Fisher with you. We'll be right back after the news. Don't go anywhere.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wildman, and July 4th is coming up, Independence Day, as we look back on 1776, the freedoms, the liberty that God has blessed us with, and the valor that it took to get to that place by our founding fathers. And so let's appreciate what God has done, and let's celebrate America this July 4th.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio, a ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. A terror plot to attack a 4th of July parade in Ohio has been stopped by federal authorities. More from Tanya J. Powers.
The FBI says Demetrius Nathaniel Pitts is charged with 1 count of attempting to provide material support to al-Qaeda. FBI Special Agent in charge, Stephen Anthony, says Pitts told an undercover agent his plans to bomb Cleveland's July 4th parade and had disturbing Facebook posts.
They included verbiage that had words to the effect, "We as Muslims need to start training like this every day. We need to know how to shoot guns, throw hand grenades, hand-to-hand combat."
He also wanted to plan a future attack on Philadelphia. Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
The White House is weighing in on what the president is looking for in his next nominee to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Can't tell you who it will be. That's up to the president, but I guarantee you it'll be somebody who has fidelity to the Constitution, doesn't make up the law as they go along. In fact, doesn't make up the law at all, since that's the legislature's job and it's the judiciary's job to interpret the law.
Counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway. A crew member from a Norwegian cruise line ship who fell overboard off the coast of Cuba is alive and well, found nearly a day later by another cruise ship. Evan Brown reports.
The crewman from the Norwegian Getaway was spotted falling into the water Saturday, more than 20 miles from the shores of Cuba. The ship began an immediate search. Bob Schellenberger was a passenger.
They were calling on the ship's PA looking for him. They turned the boat around. The captain came on the PA. We did do a search pattern for about 2 hours.
The U.S. Coast Guard searched more than 1,600 square miles before giving up, but then late Sunday, workers aboard the Carnival Glory saw something or somebody in the sea. The ship found it was the missing man from the other cruise liner still alive. In Miami, Eben Brown, Fox News.
A terrorism and Middle East expert is outraged that a left-wing professor is putting thousands of ICE agents in danger. Chad Groening has more.
Recently, the Daily Caller reported that an adjunct professor at New York University has created a database containing the personal information of nearly 1,600 current Immigration and Customs Enforcement employees and spreading it to domestic terrorist groups like Antifa. The article states, quote, Sam Levigny, a far-left artist and game designer, is spreading personal information, such as where they live and their contact information known as doxing, of people who they consider Nazi or alt-right, which according to them includes ICE and the NSA. Brigitte Gabriel is founder and president of Act for America and the author of the soon-to-be-released book entitled Rise, in defense of Judeo-Christian values and freedom.
What we're seeing right now is our enemies. I call it the leftist Islamist coalition, because the leftists are vicious right now, that they are willing to do anything to kill and sabotage people who are entrusted to protect us, whether it's the police or ICE.
And Gabriel says concerned Americans need to demand that this professor be held accountable.
Professors like this have no place on American college campuses. Professors like this should be persona non grata in any place of education. Is this the type of professor or radicals we want educating our children? People need to call NYU.
Gabriel says behavior like this from an educator at one of the most prestigious universities in America cannot and should not be tolerated. I'm Chad Groening.
Plastic straws and utensils are out in Seattle. Anna Wells explains.
Seattle is the first major city in the country to ban restaurants from providing plastic straws, cocktail picks, or utensils to customers unless someone specifically asks for one. Then officials say they should be given compostable straws and utensils. Restaurants that do not comply with the regulations could face a $250 fine. The National Park Service estimates 500 million straws are used by Americans every day. Anna Wells, Fox News.
American factories expanded at an unexpectedly fast pace in June, another sign of strength for U.S. industry, but U.S. manufacturing will have to contend in the coming months with uncertainty over trade and a strengthening dollar. American Family News is online at onenewsnow.com, on Facebook and Twitter, and download the One News Now mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
In a democratic republic such as America, the hard work of democracy is done by the people. At the Values Voter Summit in Washington, D.C., September 21st through the 23rd, you'll be equipped to take up the battle for human life, strong religious liberty, and thriving families by strong conservative leaders. The Values Voter Summit is sponsored in part by AFA Action. Visit valuesvotersummit.org to register and obtain more information about the summit. That's valuesvotersummit.org.
Once upon a time, I was a liberal. But liberalism has changed. So I am walking away. And I encourage all of you to do the same.
Despite his overall unpopularity, President Trump is winning. And the Democrats right now are reeling.
These people are communists.
The Democratic Party has not figured out how to succeed in the Trump era.
Democrats don't care about us, not one bit. They walked away from us a long time ago, and it's time for us to do the same.
How many refugees has Poland taken?
0.
And you're proud of that?
Of course, because this is what our people are expecting from our government. This is why Poland is so safe. They made it very clear that there's only one way to come to Hungary, which is the legal way. We can be called populists, nationalists. I don't care. I care about my family and about my country.
Freedom prospers when religion is vibrant and the rule of law under God is acknowledged.
An informed patriot is what we want. Welcome to American Family Radio's Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio.
Muscular Christianity.
Where we relentlessly explore the intersection of truth and politics.
The trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so.
Now, here's your host, Brian Fisher.
Howdy and welcome back to the second hour of Focal Point on American Family Radio. Glad to have you in the conversation no matter how you happen to be here, live streaming us on Facebook, live streaming us on YouTube. You can catch us on one of our 184 stations that comprise the American Family Radio Network. You can use the apps for the iPhone and the Android to listen to us on the go. You can listen to us via podcast. At the end of every day, we got thousands of people every month, tens of thousands of people that listen to us, track us on podcast. You can listen to the program at your leisure. So anyway, however you happen to be with us, we are glad you are. We videotape the live stream on Facebook. It's uploaded to our Facebook page right after the program with an extensive table of contents. We upload the YouTube. We record the YouTube stream. It's uploaded to our YouTube channel, which you can find, by the way, and subscribe to. Go to the YouTube channel for Facebook, click on the little bell in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll get a notification that a new Focal Point live program is about to start. You get the same kind of notification on Facebook as well. Now, I want to turn our attention to introduce our guest, good friend of mine and a colleague here at American Family Radio, American Family Association, Wil Addison. Wil, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Thank you for having me again.
Wil has been a guest on our program before. And, Wil, I wanted to bring you in and let our listeners know about a conference that you're a part of hosting and sponsoring and organizing and arranging.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about it. And
okay. Well, it's the Urban Family Communications Marriage, Family, and Life Conference. It will be happening August 17 and 18 here in Tupelo, Mississippi at Hope Church. And basically it's a conference that we're going to be focusing in on traditional marriage, on family structure and the life issue. We're bringing in a couple of speakers, Ryan Baumberger of the Radiance Foundation, and also Dr. Clarence Schuler, who is a protege of Gary Chapman, and he does a lot of marriage and marriage seminars and things like that. And so it's just going to be a great time. We're going to have some breakout sessions, the keynote speakers, panel discussions. One of the other features is we're going to have a conference within a conference for kids ages 4 to 12. And so Maria Hamilton will be hosting that, and it's just going to be a great time.
All right, that's coming up on August 17 and 18. That's a Friday night or Friday and a Saturday?
It's a Friday. It's going to be 2 whole days, so it's going to start Friday morning. It's going to end Saturday about 3:45, 3:30 p.m.
Okay. And Hope Church, that's where I go, got a beautiful auditorium for a conference of this type. And one thing, Wil, we just want to clear up as we're into this conversation here is when people think of urban family and they see this as an urban family, what's the COMM stand for? I can't even read my own.
Urban Family Conference. I mean,
Urban Family Conference on Marriage and Family?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I wrote COMM and I couldn't even read my own shorthand. Anyway, they think it's an urban family conference and they think, well, this is just for folks that are urban families, but it's not. It's for
everyone. Everyone. We've gotten that question, and we like to say on Urban, if you're listening, then you are our target audience. So it doesn't matter if you're white, black, whatever. It's hosted by Urban Family Communications, but it's for anyone who wants to come. Any family member, any marriage, people who are married, can be a part of this. And so I think it's going to be a great encouragement for all believers, who want to strengthen their marriages. Even if you're single, you can come, you can learn, some tips about things for when you get married. We have some great speakers that's going to really, really, communicate the importance of marriage and family. All of the Urban Family hosts will be doing some type of breakout or keynote speaking, so it'd be a great time.
Let me ask one question, because this will lead into where I want to go with what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Will, I know you're very concerned about the condition of the urban family, and you work toward that end. You speak to that community every day to try to improve families and marriages there. And as you look at the urban family, and there's the direction I want to go with this, but when you look at the urban family, what do you see as the top maybe 3 needs that exist in the urban family where it needs to be strengthened?
Yeah, I would say number 1 is a return to God. I mean, that's family in general, urban family, just family in general, but a return to godly principles. I think, marriage in itself, there are a lot of children being born out of wedlock in the urban context, and it's happening all over, but especially in some of our communities. And so getting married, I think that's a huge thing. Fathers being involved in children's lives, even if there are circumstances that are not really good, fathers still can be involved in their children's lives. Now, we want them to be married, to the people that they're having babies with, to the women they're having babies with, but at the same time, they have to be involved in some way. I have friends whose parents were divorced, but their fathers were active in their lives. And we don't promote, of course, divorce. That's not the standard. But a dad can still be involved in a child's life, and we want to see that. So I think it all starts with the family being under God. If we can get that, I think we're on the right foot.
Well, I think about these 3 things, Will, that you just mentioned, and this is not just a need in urban families. This is a need in every family.
Yep.
So if you're in a family and you want to find a way to make God more central to your family, as a husband and a wife with your children, then this conference is for you, because that's one of the things they're going to talk about is making God central in your life, your family's life. We want the entire church to understand the importance of getting married before you have kids. So this will be encourage folks to think about getting married. You could have single people coming to this who want to get a head start on what it means to have a good marriage and family. They're not married yet, but this is a conference you can find out how to plan ahead. And one of the things you'll hear is the importance of getting married and having that as the foundation for your family before you start bringing kids into the mix. And then getting fathers involved in the lives of your children. I can hardly think of a more important message for every family to get in America.
Yeah, and we wanted to make the conference such that whole families can come. That's why we want to have something for the children. Sometimes, parents may feel like, well, I can't go because I have to find a babysitter or something like that. But no, we want you to come. All the kids get in for free all the way up to the age of 18. And like I said, we have a conference within a conference. There's going to be an apologetics type thing for the kids, and so we want whole families to come. We want this to be a memory that they can build, go back to their homes and be strengthened, to carry on God's purpose for their families.
Well, my guest has been Wil Addison. He and his wife, Mickey, head up Urban Family Talk. You can go to urbanfamilytalk.com. Get more information about them. You can listen to the whole lineup of Urban Family Talk on the website. And Wil and Mickey doing an absolutely great job, and they're organizing this conference. It's the Urban Family Conference on Marriage and Family. Urban Family Marriage, Family, and Life Conference. And you're encouraged to go. It's August 17 and 18. You can get more information by going to urbanfamilytalk.com. Urbanfamilytalk.com for all ages. You don't have to arrange for child care. If you got kids above the age of 4, you can bring them. Got a whole day full of activities for them, or weekend of activities, really, for them, Friday and Saturday. So, again, that's urbanfamilytalk.com. Wil Addison has been my guest. Thanks, Will, for dropping by.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And God's best to you on this conference.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
Here's Twyla Brace, president of CCHF, with today's Health Freedom Minute.
In just 9 days, my book, Big Brother in the Exam Room, The Dangerous Truth About Electronic Health Records, will be released on Amazon. You can find it by going to www.bigbrotherintheexamroom.com. If you want to be notified that day, go there now and ask for notification. My intended audience is you. I need you to understand why the electronic health record was imposed by both Republicans and Democrats, and to see the dangers to patient safety, physician sanity, personalized care, medical ethics, professional integrity, and our constitutional republic. In just 9 days, on July 11th, 7/11, you can order it online. Go to bigbrotherintheexamroom.com.
Learn more about protecting your healthcare choices. Sign up for the CCHF Weekly E-News Update at cchfreedom.org. That's cchfreedom.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wildman, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. You know, we only go to the Holy Land once a year, and that's in March. Last year, we filled up several months in advance. So if you want to go in March of 2019, it's time to look at the details. You can get a brochure from us at 800-FAMILIES, 1-800-FAMILIES, option 5, and leave us your name and your telephone number, or go to twholyland.com, twholyland.com. It's going to be a wonderful time in Israel. We'll go to the Sea of Galilee, the Jordan River, the Holy City of Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Masada, the Dead Sea, and on the list goes. If you'd like to go with us in March of 2019, all the information is available at twholyland.com. Order a brochure by calling 800-FAMILIES, option 5.
This is Focal Point with Brian Fisher on American Family Radio.
Howdy, and welcome back to Focal Point American Family Radio. Brian Fisher is my name. Great to have you in the conversation. By the way, I don't know if you knew that you could bet on who's going to become a nominee to the Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett right now is leading the favorite. She's got 5-2 odds. Okay, where
are you finding this?
Yeah, this is on The Hill, of all places, which is one of the standard websites in Washington, D.C., political websites. Here's the one I want to get to. Judge Judy is given 250-1 odds.
Judge Judy?
Judge Judy is on the list. And you can even bet on Kanye West. That's what I wanted to get to. Kanye West is going off at 1,000-1 odds. So if you want to take a big flyer, Kanye West, you can bet on him.
Do they have like Ted Cruz and Trey Gowdy and people like that on there even?
Let's see, they got...
or Janine Pirro?
Pirro? No, I don't think she's on here. Judge Joe Brown is. I don't know who that guy is. He must be a TV judge. Jeff Sessions is on the list at 100-1 odds. Brett Kavanaugh and Thomas Hardiman have been mentioned as leaders in this consideration. And all that. But the early favorite is Amy Coney Barrett, who's the one that we happen to like. We're not encouraging you to bet on her because none of us are. And we think betting is just a bad idea to begin with, so don't do it. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit about immigration from a European standpoint. By the way, Donald Trump did not renew what Obama did every year, which was to have a gay pride event at the Pentagon. Did not happen this year. Second year in a row that Trump did not do it. So all of this obsession with advancing the homosexual agenda in the military, slowing down a little bit, Donald Trump has put a ban on transgender serving in the military, apart from special exceptions. So he is bringing some kind of sanity and balance to the military. Now let's look at some leaders in Europe. And I want you to hear some sound bites from these guys. Here is Dominic Tarczynski. Number you can call, by the way, is 888-589-8840. Dominic Tarczynski, he's a member of Poland's Law and Justice Party. He was recently interviewed by Britain's Channel 4. Remember, I don't know if you remember, they did a profile on me back in the day. Took me out playing golf and everything.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's Britain's Channel 4. Anyway, he's being interviewed, Dominic Tarczynski from Poland, being interviewed on Britain's Channel 4, part of the BBC lineup of networks. And here is an exchange he has with the anchor. Listen to this.
How many refugees has Poland taken?
0.
And you're proud of that?
If you are asking me, if you are asking me about Muslims illegal immigration, none, not even one, will come to Poland. Not even one if it's illegal. We took over 2 million Ukrainians who are working, who are peaceful in Poland. We will not receive even one Muslim because this is what we promised.
But I asked not about illegal immigrants, I asked about refugees. And Jean-Claude Juncker, the Commission President, says that you're racist. You sound proud of the fact that you haven't taken any refugees.
Of course, because this is what our people are expecting from our government. That's number one. This is why our government was elected. But this is why Poland is so safe. This is the reason why we had not even one terrorist attack. Look at the streets in Poland. And we can be called populists, nationalists, racists. I don't care. I care about my family and about my country.
All right, this is what we talked about last week. Islam is the Ebola virus of culture. Poland recognizes that. They're not even going to take one Muslim immigrant or one Muslim refugee. Not one. Not even a refugee. And their reasoning there, he didn't talk about it, but it's perfectly sound. There are 56 Muslim countries in the world. Now, if Islam is the religion of peace, like everybody reminds us endlessly, it's a religion of peace, that means there are 56 havens of peace and tranquility where refugees can be sent if they happen to be Muslim and find a country that celebrates the same religious values that they do. So Poland, not accepting one single Muslim immigrant. And what do they have to show for it? Peace.
Yeah.
They have not had one terrorist attack in Poland. Why? Because they do not allow a single Muslim immigrant. And again, they're not saying every Muslim immigrant is a jihadist. They're saying we don't know which are and which aren't. We can't tell the difference. We've got to protect our people. We've got to be careful with them all. All right, let's grab clip number 7. This is Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó talking to Breitbart's Amanda House. Here is clip number 1 from that interview.
We made it very clear from the beginning that we are not ready to receive any illegal migrants on the territory of our own country. And we made it very clear that it is only the Hungarians who can make a decision whom we allow to come to the territory of our country and whom we do not allow to come. And it is only us Hungarians to make a decision with whom we would like to live together and with whom not. And that's why we have been protecting our border from the very first moment. We have built fence, a very long one. We are protecting 550 kilometers of external border of both European Union and Schengen area. And we made it very clear that there's only one way to come to Hungary, which is the legal way, through the official border crossing points with the appropriate documentation during opening hours, period.
Period. So they are not taking any illegal immigrants. Any. Not Muslim, not Protestant, not Catholic, not Christian, not any illegal immigrants on the territory of our country. And he says very simply, the decision about who gets to come in and who doesn't, that's up for Hungarians to decide. We, the Hungarian people, will decide who gets to come into our country. Immigrants don't get to decide that. We get to decide that. People that we think will assimilate, will be an asset, will fit in to our culture, and Hungary is a Christian nation. Viktor Orban, the prime minister, said, look, We are a Christian nation by heritage, so we only want to bring in Christians because they share our values. Our most deeply held values are religious values. They're most deeply held values for everybody. We want people that share the values that are most important to our culture, and that's Christianity. We've been a Christian country for decades, for centuries. We want to continue to be that, so we are not going to allow any illegal immigrants into our country, and we want Christian immigrants in particular. And they built a fence. Hungarians have built a fence, 342 miles of fencing. So they're not allowing any illegal immigrants to come across their border.
Yeah, and Brian, I think you're seeing more and more countries kind of moving in this direction. Yesterday, Bulgarian Prime Minister Boyko Borisov declared that, well, let me read what he said. After the EU had a summit on immigration, and it basically failed, he said that the only way EU can solve its problem is to seal the external border, detain illegal immigrants already present, and deport them back to where they came from.
Well, you know, and this guy was talking about this is why we got elected. Is in Hungary. We got elected because we promised the people this.
Yeah.
And that's why Trump got elected.
Italy's moving that direction as well.
Yeah, Italy's turning back boats that have refugees on them, turning back at their ports. You know, the early meme was that you couldn't control the Mediterranean border of Europe, but you can. Italy's proving that by rejecting people that are trying to sneak into the country or come into the country as refugees on boats. So anyway, Donald Trump got elected for exactly the same reason why this Hungarian guy is saying we got elected. And here is clip number 8, the second clip from Szijjártó, who is the foreign minister of Poland.
If you look back for the last 3 years of European history, you will see that 29 major terrorist attacks have been committed, killing more than 330 persons, causing injuries to an additional 1,300. And this is a clear outcome of the migration crisis, because imagine there were around 1.5 million people entering the territory of the European Union without any kind of control, without any kind of check. So this is a clear outcome. We made it very clear from the very beginning that illegal migration is a security issue. It's a huge security threat posed on the European Union. That's why we think that the protection of the external border of the European Union is the #1 issue.
The #1 issue, and Heritage Foundation backs up what this guy's saying, that there have been 32 terrorist plots. He thought there were 29, but there have been 32 terrorist plots involving asylum seekers. These are the people that come to the border. They claim they're fleeing violence, they're fleeing persecution. We just need refuge in your country. They claim to be asylum seekers. They're hatching terrorist plots in the countries that accept them in. And those plots have resulted in 357 deaths and 1,678 injuries. So just because they say they're asylum seekers doesn't necessarily mean they don't represent a threat to your people. Here is clip number 9.
We have a serious debate with some of our Western friends who put it forward like that migration is by definition good. Migration by definition is the best thing that could happen to humanity. No, we don't agree with that. Migration poses a huge security risk. And instead of encouraging people to leave their homes and come to Europe, we should help them to be able to stay at home under safe and secure circumstances. So there's a false context which has been built. And this false context says migration is a fundamental human right. No, migration is not a fundamental human right. It's not a fundamental human right to pick a country where you would like to live in and then get there by violating series of borders. It's not a fundamental human right to pick United States where I want to live. It's not a fundamental human right to pick Germany where I want to live.
All right, so migration is not a fundamental human right. How many times do you hear people saying that? They have a fundamental human right to migrate to the United States? No, they do not. All right, Robert, if you can hang on, we'll take you coming right out of the break. If you want to get a part of our conversation, give us a call at 888-589-8840. We'll start off next segment, and we'll take nothing but your phone calls for a good part of the segment, 888-589-8840. You know, so much common sense. We're listening to the leaders of Poland, the leaders of Hungary, and they're saying, look, number one, migration is not a human right. Number two, we, the people of Hungary or Poland or the United States, we get to decide who comes into our country and who doesn't. Poland saying we have not accepted one single solitary Muslim migrant. Why? Because we are a Christian nation. We want people who share our values and therefore will assimilate into our culture. That's been my view for a long time. 56 Muslim nations around the world. If they're right, if everybody's right when they scream at us that Islam is a religion of peace, great. Let's help them find a haven in one of those 56 havens of the religion of peace. Focal Point, American Family Radio. Be right back.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I had a lot of credit card debt and I couldn't pay my bills. I was feeling so bad. I got to a point where I needed some help. So I reached out and contacted Trinity.
If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813 to talk to a certified counselor.
They were able to take all of my different payments and put them all together.
Trinity will consolidate your accounts into one easy-to-manage monthly payment, put a stop to late fees and over-limit charges, reduce your interest, and possibly improve your credit score. You'll save thousands.
And they were actually able to work with my creditors. I've been able to pay off close to $15,000 in the last 18 months.
If your debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
My name is Stephanie, and I'm debt-free for keeps.
1-800-788-1813.
Here on American Family Radio, this is David Wolin with Haven Ministries, inviting you to anchor your day in God's Word. Ever caught yourself saying something like, "They sure don't make these things like they used to"? I've said that about everything from electronics to washing machines, but one day, an appliance repairman told me why. It's called manufactured obsolescence. Sometimes a product is designed not to last. They want it to break right after the end of the warranty, so you'll have to buy a new one. Aren't you glad the guarantee of your salvation in Christ doesn't work like that? It's an unbreakable guarantee that will never become obsolete. Ephesians 1:14. The Spirit is God's guarantee that He will give us the inheritance He promised and that He has purchased us to be His own people. Get more encouragement from Anchor Devotional in print monthly at getanchor.com.
American Family Radio. You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. Video segments of today's program will be posted at afr.net and on the Focal Point Facebook page. You'll also find the best collection of Brian's resources on our Facebook page. If you're on Twitter, be among the very first every morning to find out what the day's show will be about. Just follow Brian at Brian J. Fisher.
Brian J. Fisher.
Welcome back to Focal Point on American Family Radio. And as promised, we want to go right to the phones, get your thoughts on some of this. Let's go to Robert in Rogers, Arkansas. Robert, thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting so patiently. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to offer out a documentary that I watched on YouTube. Ronald Reagan hosted it in 1962. It was called The Truth About Communism. And I guess, so to speak, I give a trigger warning. It's kind of real time over different cultures, and he lays out the Karl Marx communism and how it failed. So I just offer that to everybody to see it.
All right, thank you, Robert. And Ronald Reagan, that was one of the things that catapulted him to political prominence, as Americans were sympathetic to his warnings about communism. And part of the reason he was elected because of the threat of the Soviet Union. Ronald Reagan, the guy that stood up to Mikhail Gorbachev, tear down this wall and that whole thing. All right, thank you for that. Let's go to Jerry in Raton, New Mexico. Jerry, what's on your mind? Talk to me.
Permission to come aboard, sir.
Permission granted, man. Your battle station, sailor.
Yes, sir. The pronunciation of that individual in Texas is Beto O'Rourke.
Beto O'Rourke. All right, got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And he is not a good politician, sir. He is supporting the legalization of marijuana, which will lead to more crime and victims of that illicit drug.
Yeah.
So,
all right, Jerry.
Texas, stick with Ted Cruz.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that call, Jerry. And this legalization of marijuana, this is there's a crusade now to get this legalized all across the country. There's even a bill that's been proposed that's going to make it a legal drug, take it off the Schedule I list of drugs that are banned. This would be a huge, major mistake. It's a mistake for any state to legalize this drug. Number one, it affects your brain. And the younger you start using marijuana, and remember, teenagers are the ones that have the least kind of restraint and least level of awareness about what's good and bad for them. The more people tell them no, the more they want to do it. So they're drawn to do things just because older people tell them it's not a good idea. And marijuana, teenagers tend to use more of it than adults, and that's when it has the most effect on the brain, the developing brain. It can have a permanent effect on decision making. Have a permanent effect on cognitive abilities. It can knock permanent points off of your IQ. Just not a good idea. It's a magnet for crime. The Netherlands, they had these marijuana shops. You go and order a cup of coffee and a joint and toke up, and they've closed them all because those marijuana cafes became magnets for crime. People ripping people off to get money to buy a joint, that kind of stuff. It's just a magnet for crime. So they backed completely off of it.
This is not the same marijuana that was around when we were kids either.
Yeah,
this is high potent stuff now.
Yeah, it's not your father's marijuana. It has rates of potency between 6 and 30 times higher than anything that your parents smoked. All right, let us go to Keith in Spanish Fort, Alabama. Keith, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey, first-time caller.
Thank you.
I was listening to you talk about the Hungarian Prime Minister and Poland. Every year I spend about 6 months in Lithuania because my wife's from there, and just as hands-on as the Muslim migration going into Europe, there in Lithuania, they pretty well tell them because they have to take so many because it's required by the EU. And they have to take so many, and they give them about 800 euros once they establish them into a country. And a Lithuanian, his average income per month is between 400 to 500 euros, and Lithuania is pretty well tells the Muslims who do arrive that they have, so much time to get a job and to speak the language. Of course, many of them don't want to be in Lithuania. The majority of them want to be in Germany or in the UK or even in Sweden, because right now Sweden is just less than 50% Muslim now. A lot of people don't realize that. They have pretty well almost taken over Sweden, parts of Sweden, because they commune in their own little city, as to say, in Sweden, and they have their own type of patrol, police, and even the Swedish cops. They don't want to venture into their area. It's pretty well a takeover of the culture of Europe. And I know in the Baltic region, they do not want a lot of Muslims coming into their country due to that, a takeover of their country and their culture. The Hungarian and the Polish people have got it right. America really needs to pay attention. I'm somewhat less cautious that it's Mexicans coming in here, but eventually it's going to lead to other migration. So it's imperative that people get involved in educating maybe their neighborhood, their community, and even try to bring in people to speak about Muslim, the true the religion of Muslim Islam. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, Keith, thank you. You know, and what Keith is saying about Sweden is dead on. I mean, they are in huge, huge trouble in Sweden. They've got these no-go zones that Keith was talking about. The cops won't even go there. So they're policed by Muslims. So they've got religious police out there that are punishing women for not dressing according to the Islamic dress code. It's just a bad news piece of business all the way around. All right, let's grab a call from Bernadette in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Bernadette, welcome. What's on your mind?
Oh,
hey.
Mr. Brian, thank you. Well, I came from the Philippines, and I really abide by the law of coming here to U.S. for immigration law.
Mm-hmm.
And so talking about all these illegal immigrants coming in here, that's just not right. And I really, really agreed with the Hungarian and the Poland on how they're doing the immigration policy they have. But like what I said, I came from the Philippines. I abide by the law, took all the exams that I needed, come here to be a useful citizen for this U.S. and helping the economy.
Yeah. Well, all right. I appreciate that call, Bernadette. And, you know, people tell us that we're just against migrants. We're just against immigration in general. We are not. You know, I love Bernadette's story. Come from the Philippines, which is connected to the United States. It's a U.S. territory. And she came in the legal way, took all the exams, paid all the fees, came into this country legally, and she's welcome here as an American citizen. She loves America. She wanted to live here. She wants to become an American. She has become an American. That's the kind of immigration that we love. It's illegal immigration that we oppose flatly, 100%. That's what we oppose. Legal immigration we love, because people like Bernadette, they want to live here, they want to become Americans, and they play by the rules. They get in line, they take their exams, they pay their fees, and they are welcome here as full-fledged citizens. All right, thank you, Bernadette, for the call very much. Let's go to Larry, Clearwater, Florida. Larry, what's on your mind? Talk to me.
Howdy, Brian. Thank you for having me aboard.
You bet.
I have one question, one comment. The question I have is, it seems to me like these M15s and these drug smugglers and these people are coming over with these slave trade and all that. That's detrimental to our national security. Why doesn't Trump just shut down the border, get laws passed, put up a vetting system like they do the Muslims, and get everything straightened out, and then we'll have a peaceful way of getting people in here? And that's the question. The comment I have is, I agree with those things that back in the day in the 70s, I used to smoke pot, and I quit because it made me stupid and fat. And now I found Jesus, and I can't get any better than happier than I am now.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks, Larry. Appreciate that. There's your best testimonial of the day. Don't start smoking pot because it'll make you stupid and fat. We have a testimonial to that effect. Larry, listen, I appreciate the call very much. You know, and the answer to the question about why President Trump doesn't shut down the border, I mean, he wants to. He's given orders that it be shut down, but there just is not enough personnel to apprehend everybody that wants to sneak across the border. By the way, that's one of the reasons why we don't like this detention policy along the border, because it ties up ICE, it ties up Border Patrol personnel in babysitting. It ties them up running these little family camps for kids when they should be out there patrolling the border and stopping this influx. They just keep streaming across the border, then the judges tell us we got to find a place for them, and it gums the whole thing up. You know, and you can secure a border with the military. With the military alone, you can secure the border. In fact, I think we ought to do that. We ought to deploy the military to the southern border to use force to protect the sanctity and the security of the border. That's what we do in North Korea, South Korea. We have 30,000 troops on the border between South and North Korea. We just have the military there, 30,000 troops. And trust me, nobody gets across that border. When somebody does, it's huge news. Remember that story that we followed a while ago? That guy made a break from North Korea, actually got across the border into South Korea, and everybody was talking about it for a week. Why? Because it never happens. Why does it never happen? Because we've got the military down there, 30,000 strong, patrolling every square inch of that border. Nobody is going to get across that thing without doing it in a way that is legal. And I think we need to do the same thing. A lot of people talking about having the military down there on the border. I believe we ought to do it. Their job is to protect our national security. That right now is where the main threat to our national security is coming from. It's coming right from that border, and that's where we need to lock it down. We need to stop. You know, and the guy in Hungary saying, or Poland, not one illegal alien, not one Muslim immigrant, not one single Muslim immigrant, not even one, not one illegal alien, not even one, period. We just don't allow it. You know, and Hungary's got that 342-mile fence, and it has shrunk their illegal immigration down virtually to zero. You say fences don't work, ask the Hungarian people. They've cut their illegal immigration flow virtually down to nothing with a 342-mile physical border barrier. It can be done. All right, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the nomination to the Supreme Court. We'll take more of your calls. 888-589-8840 is the number. Give us a call. We'll make you a part of the conversation. 888-589-8840. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Friendships is offering Seahawks Holy Land, a very special session of their Relief Missions program for young adults beginning September 2018. Seahawks will be deployed to the Middle East following basic training and will provide medical care and humanitarian aid to Syrian war victims at Camp Ishai on the border between Israel and Syria. Study the Word and tour Israel. Experience the sites where Jesus and the disciples lived and worked. Go to friendships.org. Call 337-433-5022 for more information.
Who is God? What is He like? How can we know? Your answer to these questions will impact your worship, discipleship, apologetics, and evangelism. Learn from Ravi Zacharias, Josh McDowell, Chip Ingram, and more than 60 other speakers at Southern Evangelical Seminary's 25th Annual National Conference on Christian Apologetics. It's October 12th and 13th in Charlotte, North Carolina. Get the early bird discount when you register by August 1st at ses.edu.
The first cries of a newborn baby signal the miracle of life. There are some who believe that life actually begins at that point, that whatever is in the womb is just tissue and could possibly even be an accident. But the Bible shows something quite different. In Psalm 139 it says, "For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Life begins in the womb at the point of conception, and the Bible makes it clear that it's not just tissue, and there are no accidents with God. Life is a precious gift that's meant to be treasured, not destroyed. In fact, life is so valued by God that He sent His Son Jesus to be the sacrifice for sin so we could have life with Him for eternity. If life is that important to God, shouldn't we do all we can to protect it? For your help in defending the sanctity of human life, thank you. From AFR.
American Family Radio. You're listening to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. Focal Point. Brian Fisher.
Howdy, welcome back to this last segment of Focal Point. Number to call, 888-589-8840. Talk about anything we've talked about on the program today. Rob, let's start this segment by going to clip number 10. This is Maria Teresa Kumar. She is the CEO of Voto Latino. I guess that's an organization trying to get Hispanics out to vote. She was on with Joy Reid, AM Joy, and here's what she had to say about immigration.
This is a strategy of a sort of ethnic cleansing, and we're in the beginning of it, and it's important that people are marching, that Americans are present, because if we do not stand up for this government, we're basically giving them a carte blanche on identifying who can be American.
We are giving them carte blanche on identifying who can be an American. You know who gives them carte blanche to decide that? The Constitution does that. That's who gives this government the right to decide who can be in America. That's in the Constitution. Congress gets to control migration after the year 1808. That's when they abolished the slave trade. Why? Because they could control who comes into this country and who doesn't. They said no more slaves, no more slave ships. You can't come in. You can't migrate to this country. We're not going to put up with it. So it's just ridiculous, just identifying who can be an American. That's the job of Congress, according to the Constitution. And they delegate to the president, using their lawmaking authority, they delegate to the president the authority to decide if there's a group of aliens that's detrimental to the interests of the United States. He, on his own authority, can ban their immigration into the United States. He has the authority, along with Congress, to decide who gets to be an American. All right, let's pick up a couple more phone calls, and I want to save some time toward the end of the segment to talk about the Supreme Court situation. Let's grab a call from Bobby in Hudson, Florida. Bobby, welcome. What's on your mind?
Brian, thanks to you for all you do, my friend.
You're welcome.
Brian, I just wanted to share something with you and your audience. My wife is 65 years old, and she's never voted in her whole life. And a girl had come by here, we're trying to register people, you know, throughout our trailer park. And I knew it was they were trying to line people up for Democrats, because the first thing the lady said, well, we just got to get Trump out of there. But the next morning, I had called up the supervisor of elections and got my wife sent a voter registration form. She filled it out, sent it back. 2.5 weeks later, she's got her voter ID card, and she can vote by mail. I just thought maybe if we could pass that over the air to all the people that don't want to take the time or an effort to go out there and register. But it's so easy for us to unite us, you know, Christians and everybody that wants to safeguard our democracy to do it that way.
All right, that's a great call. I appreciate that, Bobby. Thank you for that. So get registered. It's not complicated. You can get registered, and that way you can vote in November for those candidates that are going to help us confirm future Supreme Court justices, help make good policy, help advance the kind of agenda that Donald Trump is working on. It's not that trouble, not that hard. Bobby pointing the way. If it can be done, it can be done. If it can be done by senior citizens who may be a little bit mobility restricted, it can be done by anybody. Go and register to vote. Thanks for the encouragement, Bobby. Appreciate that. Let's go to Kelly in Great Falls, Montana. Welcome, Kelly. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian.
Hey.
I am calling. President Trump is actually scheduled to make a stop in our little town here this week.
Yes.
And speaking of popularity, he was who our state had voted for. And I'm just wondering, what do you think I should do? Because I know I'm going to get my daughter involved in politics, so I kind of want to take her with and see what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, absolutely take her with you, and she's going to see a lot of very enthusiastic people for President Trump, and you can help explain to her why people are enthusiastic for him, why they like him. So that's something I would encourage you to do. Take her there. She can soak up the atmosphere. She can see the response of the people to our current president. She can tell, obviously, that most of the people in the room are going to like him enthusiastically, and you can explain to him the things that he has done that prompt people to like him, that he's cut taxes for ordinary working Americans. It leaves more money in their paychecks at the end of the week, so they can use that money for their lifestyle to take care of the needs of their families. He's working hard at protecting our borders from illegal alien immigration. That protects our communities from violence, makes us more secure. He's expanding the strength of the military, which makes our nation more secure. He is nominating good people to the Supreme Court, so we don't have radicals on the Supreme Court that are making up the law from the Supreme Court as they go, but instead following the Constitution. So emphasize some of those things. I'm sure he will be talking about the nomination to replace Anthony Kennedy on the Supreme Court. That's going to be a big deal, and that's going to be all about the abortion issue. That's going to be front and center about that issue, who the next member of the Supreme Court is. So you got an opportunity, Kelly, to introduce your daughter, be in the presence of a president, hear him, see why people like him, and explain it to your daughter yourself. So that's a great idea. I think that'll be terrific. You know, give us a call after the rally and let us know how it went. All right, Kelly, thank you for that call. Let's go to Linda in Beaumont, Texas. Linda, welcome. What's on your mind?
Yes, I wanted to talk just a second about Beto O'Rourke. I know that it's considered a major sin by the left to do, quote, cultural appropriation, and like they drove two ladies out of the taco business in California because they were white. Beto O'Rourke chose that Hispanic nickname so he could win the election. He is not the least bit Hispanic. He is Irish. Ted Cruz is exactly who he says he is. He's a true Christian. He is a true constitutionalist.
Okay, Linda, I appreciate your call. You know, it's interesting the lengths to which people will go to try to just fool the voters just a little bit. Beto O'Rourke, grabbing a first name that's Hispanic in nature, but he's not Hispanic. He's Irish. as O'Rourke would suggest. All right, Linda, well, thank you for making sure we understood the absolute truth there about Beto O'Rourke. All right, let's go to Joe, Oklahoma City. Welcome, Joe. What's on your mind? Talk to me.
Yeah, hi, Brian. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Oh, good, thanks. Hey, I just wanted to share a couple things with you guys. I was going to talk to you about socialism, but your guy that called earlier said his wife was from Lithuania. It kind of reminded me of something, so I want to talk to you about that. But in the meantime, I thought about you guys were talking about how Islam is taking over Sweden and whatnot. And I just wanted to remind everybody that it wasn't that long ago, and you can find this on the web, you can Google it, but it wasn't that long ago that in Saudi Arabia, a building caught on fire, and there were a bunch of girls that were trying to get out, and the religious police would not let them out of the building because they weren't wearing proper Islamic clothing, and they wound up burning up. So much for Islam. Now, my comment on socialism, for all the people out there that are thinking that it's a good idea, when I went to visit my wife's family over in Russia, we were in St. Petersburg, and we took a little side trip over to Finland, where they got a lot of socialism. And I don't know what you guys are paying for a McDonald's cheeseburger down there in Tupelo, but here in Oklahoma City, we pay $1. When we were in Finland, we bought a similar burger from a place called Hesburger. It cost more than $7. And that's how they afford their socialism. I just wanted to let you all know.
All right, thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. Yeah, socialism extremely expensive. Somebody's got to pay for all those welfare programs. We're running into that here. All right, Joe, thank you. A couple of quick sound bites I want to play before we get done with the hour. This is from Susan Collins, clip number 4. She's the one to keep an eye on because of this sound bite right here, she said on a Sunday morning television program. Let's listen.
Indeed, Justice Roberts has made very clear that he considers Roe v. Wade to be settled law. I would not support a nominee who demonstrated hostility to Roe v. Wade, because that would mean to me that their judicial philosophy did not include a respect for established decisions, established law. And I believe that that is a very important fundamental tenet of our judicial system, which, as Chief Justice Roberts says, helps to promote stability and even-handedness.
You know, it's interesting. We just saw the Supreme Court overturn a Supreme Court ruling from 1977. They didn't consider that sacred, something you couldn't tamper with, something. In the Union ruling, they threw out their own ruling from 1977. So established precedent doesn't have this mythical sacred value that the left wants you to think. Precedents are overturned all the time. Jake Tapper interviewed somebody the other day, said the Supreme Court has reversed itself 250 times in its history. So we got to get out of our minds this idea that there's something sacred, or Tapper said reversed itself 200 times. There is no such thing as sacred, untouchable precedent. Does not exist. All right, here's Donald Trump talking with Maria Bartiromo about where we could be headed with the abortion issue.
Well, maybe someday it will be to the states. You never know how that's going to turn out. That's a very complex question. The Roe v. Wade is probably the one that people are talking about in terms of having an effect. But we'll see what happens. But it could very well end up with states at some point.
Now, if Roe v. Wade is overturned, which we pray to God it will be, that would put the management, the regulation of abortion back in the hands of the states where it properly belongs. The way the founders set up our republic to work is that the federal government would have very few and very well-defined responsibilities, largely dealing with foreign affairs, largely dealing with international affairs and domestic affairs. These issues would be left in the hands of the states. That's where they belong. Donald Trump properly anticipating that if it's overturned, it'll wind up with the states, which is where it belongs, which means one of the key issues for everybody in every state to ask, what kind of laws do we have on the books that will go into effect if Roe is overturned? Well, ladies and gentlemen, bow low before God, stand tall before man, stand in the gap, and never forget we are fighting a winnable war. See you tomorrow.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Hello, this is Dr. Ronnie Floyd, President of the National Day of Prayer Task Force. In the Declaration of Independence, our founding fathers acknowledged God. As we celebrate our nation's independence,